Welcome to episode 449 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Seth Troyer
and Andrew Swafford.
In today's episode, we will be concluding our Don Bluth series with 2000's Titan A.E. in part 2. We're going to be taking it to the end of the world.
As we know it.
Exactly.
Or and the beginning of a new world.
Whoa.
Ooh. More on that in part 2. And then in part 1, we're going to talk about movies that we saw this week. I'm going to kick us off with a new release, and it's a little scrappy underdog movie about six-figure Nike executives sealing the deal on a multi-million-dollar shoe deal.
Yeah,
it's Air. It is.
And my dad will not stop asking me to watch this movie.
It's okay. It's honest. Like, it's a movie. I don't want to think too much about it. I enjoyed it, but I don't want to think too much about it and its politics. Like, it doesn't seem like a good time. So
there are so many great Letterboxd reviews about its politics, and I have not seen the movie, but have read so much about it.
It's honestly somewhat fascinating. So again, like, it's literally like the movie's framed. Okay, so the story of the movie is it's the story of Nike securing Michael Jordan to his, the monumental game-changing shoe deal partnership that pretty much, changed sports and culture as we know it, creating the Air Jordan brand. And you have like Matt Damon playing Sonny Vaccaro, you have Ben Affleck playing Phil Knight and having a fucking time with it.
Matt Damon of Titan A.E.
Of Titan A.E. The same one.
Is Matt Damon in Titan A.E.?
He's the main character, man.
Man, that did not register to me at all.
Dang.
I guess that's like Matt Damon as, stereotypical, like straightforward masculine guy,
I mean, you can't really tell, to be honest. I only knew because I looked it up before the movie. You have Jason Bateman playing Rob Strasser. You got Viola Davis playing Michael Jordan's mom, and you have and easily the funniest portion of the movie, this one actor who you never see his face. They just use the back of his head to look like Michael Jordan in 1984.
Wow.
It's really funny.
Wait, how often is this character on screen?
Comically way too much. Where they literally have a meeting, like they have the big meeting with him, and like they're saying, "Hey, Michael, it's good to meet you," and he's like kind of like waving, like, but he's like heads turned around. It's really funny. But no, this is a weird movie because it's like it's set up like a sports, underdog story. It's like it's Rudy or it's Hoosiers or something. But the team from Hoosiers is six-figure Nike executives.
Mm-hmm.
It's so like I saw a couple of reviews about this on Letterboxd, and I agree. It's it's kind of tough to buy into the whole underdog thing because you're just like, yeah, but y'all are still gonna be okay. Like, it's
and Michael Jordan is not an underdog either.
He's not. He would have been an amazing basketball player either way. But I honestly like the movie works at least on like it's an entertaining movie, and it works on that level because Ben Affleck, good director, he does a good job of like moving it along. People have been talking about the pace of the movie. I don't necessarily. It moves very quickly. This is a like right at 2 hour. Well, a little under 2 hour movie, and it feels like it's like an hour and 15 minutes. It moves like at lightning speed. Honestly, they could have spent a little bit more time. And two, it's just like it's like a throwback like movie star movie. Like Damon and Affleck are fun. Bateman's throwing lines. Chris Messina's like swearing at Matt Damon over the phone and just like eviscerating him with insults.
Yeah. It feels very like Jerry Maguire. As someone who's not seen Jerry Maguire, I just have like that vibe. Like this is just, businessmen on phones shouting things at each other.
Yeah, that's a good Jerry.
Khakis.
It's a lot of khakis. It's more Jerry Maguire than like it, but it's definitely wanting to be like Moneyball, and I'm like, nah, this ain't even like close to how good Moneyball is, or even like High Flying Bird. Like it's not even near those things. It's more like Jerry Maguire. But I don't know. I say like I don't want to think about that because it's just this like it has this like deep, you know, it's really just seeped in this 80s nostalgia. It's like needle dropping, you know, like Money for Nothing and all these other songs like just consistently throughout. And like again, I don't know what to do with like these like like that we've moved on from like, you know, it's one thing to like have if this was like a Michael Jordan biopic. Okay, like I get
Right.
that. It's, you know, if it's cheesy, like whatever, it's a biopic, you know. But like we've like I'm not really into like this late stage capitalism move of like brand biopics. Like,
oh my god, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is why I have not seen this movie.
yeah, like there's something gross about it.
Ford, Ferrari.
Yeah, like yeah, you got like Ford, Ferrari, you got Air. I mean, for God's sakes, there's a movie coming out. I think like next week that like goes into the making of Flaming Hot Cheetos. Like, what the hell's going on?
That's true. Yeah.
What?
You know. So like, I don't know.
By the way, question: you've seen Ford v Ferrari, right?
That's also an entertaining movie. Even
does that movie acknowledge Ford being like a really prominent white supremacist?
No. He's an asshole, but he's not a white supremacist. No, it leaves that out.
Okay, more reasons to dislike brand biopic movies because we are whitewashing the history of our brand.
Yeah, well, that's why again, like I can't emphasize enough. It's like like with like Rudy, you're like, okay, there's the underdog character. He's you know, he's clearly like at a disadvantage and trying to overcome stuff against these other characters who have much more than him. Mm-hmm. It's literally a fight between Nike, Adidas, and Converse. And like
and then going home after this.
Like, and then at the end of the movie, it like I'm not even joking, it has a like here's where they are now type thing. And it talks about how Michael Jordan's made like $240 million off, you know, is made just all these millions and millions of dollars off this shoe brand. You're like, cool for Michael Jordan. And then it literally has one of Phil Knight, and it says Phil Knight donated $2 billion over time to charities.
No,
and somebody on Letterboxd was like, yeah, I looked that up. Like hundreds of millions of that $2 billion were to Harvard Business School. Like,
oh my god,
what a douchebag
on some building. Yeah,
yeah, you're just like, gee, and so it's like it's just silly. You're just
also
like,
the thing between them and who are the other companies? Was
Adidas
ESPN?
and Converse.
Adidas,
by the
Converse.
way, Nike ends up buying Converse, so it's like,
right. Like they're just advertising their own brand by having them in the movie. It reminds me of like in the 90s, there was the Sega Nintendo rivalry. Yeah. Sega had those commercials.
Which also has a movie.
Sega does what Nintendo don't, you know?
Yeah.
And like it was manufactured rivalry. They did the same thing with NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys in the 90s. Like the same dude owned both bands, and he like got fandoms to like fight each other to keep the name of both bands like in the public consciousness. Like that, it's very creepy to me. Not only that we're doing like a movie dedicated to Nike, a company who like is already like presently using child labor to make their sneakers, right? But we're also roping in all these other brands,
and it gets even better because this movie is produced by Damon and Affleck's Actors Equity organization, which is a relatively cool organization, or at least concept. But it's distributed by Amazon.
Oh wow, yeah.
And so it's, I don't know. I will say one, like I don't want to, just to be somewhat positive, because I did like the movie well enough just because it coasted on movie starness. There's like, and this just shows like how Ben Affleck is a good director. There's two needle drops in it that I don't know why he used this song twice or what, but at the same time, if you like think about it a little bit, it's honestly a genius decision. The first time you hear it is when they've created the shoe, but you don't see it, and you see like Matt Damon and the others like going, "Oh my gosh, that shoe!" But then the second time you hear it is when they unveil the shoe and give it to Michael Jordan to look at, and he needle drops the theme from Body Double, which you're like,
I heard about that.
Which you're like, why would he do that? But then you think about it, like it's all like built up in this like fetish sexualization of like the shoes and sports and person and cold. Like I'm just like, honestly, like
what?
top notch use there, Benny. But it's, I don't know. I don't believe anybody on this podcast would enjoy watching it. I mean, Andrew, if you want to watch it just for pure like curiosity, you can.
I mean, I do believe that Affleck and Damon could make an entertaining movie out of this.
It's very entertaining. I mean, that's why I'm like I seem like I'm shitting on it, but I enjoyed it. I just, again, I don't want to think about it too deeply.
It's just a kind of a scary thing on a meta industry level to like walk into that movie and be happy about spending money on it, right? Like one of my students, or I've had many students for the past several weeks asking me about my thoughts on the Mario movie. Have you seen the Mario movie yet? And like, I have not gone to see the Mario movie because I'm a little skeezed out by that too, to be honest, right? Like just the amount of movies that are coming out there, like tied into a brand, is weird to me. And like when I was explaining why to the students, I almost said out loud, the next thing you know, you're going to be going to see a movie about Nike. And then I remembered that there already was a movie about Nike in theaters now.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be cropping up a lot more. Like I mentioned, you had this Flaming Hot Cheetos movie, but you had a couple months ago the movie about the making of Tetris, or like or actually not even actually it's even worse. It's not even about the making of Tetris. It's how the Americans came in and like took Tetris from Russia and distributed it like worldwide.
Oh, so America's the hero for blessing.
Yeah, it's like Tetris. A Cold War movie. You're like, why the hell is this a Cold War movie?
What?
I don't know. It's something. It's on Amazon Prime right now, I guess, if you want to watch it.
Dude, the first episode of this podcast involved Zach expressing hype about the Lego movie.
Yeah.
Like and me being like very skeptical, and then watching it and being blown away later.
Yeah,
like, wow, this movie is so good. We all got fucking suckered into that shit, man.
I know.
The cinema became worse when like that became the norm of what movie, like how movies operated. Like it's all like IP like brand deals where we're like putting one IP in another IP, and so much the humor is just references. Like that's funny because I recognize that thing, not because the joke is good. And there are good jokes in the Lego movie, but that formula has been hollowed out over the years.
It's one good one that started a shit ton of bad ones for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know.
It already was
448 episodes later, we've come full circle.
This episode this whole podcast is a great document of late capitalism.
Brick by brick.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to a new release that's way more better. Way more better. Andrew.
Oh man, we sound like such cliches right now. We're gonna talk a bunch of crap about the new corporate movie, and are instead going to say how everyone should go see the like slow movie set in the Pacific Northwest about people making art for no money.
Oh, don't worry, I'll meet them in the middle.
Okay,
I'll meet them in the middle.
Anyways, the movie that I'm going to talk about, that Zach already talked about a bit last week, though I haven't gotten a chance to listen to that podcast yet, unfortunately, is Showing Up, the new Kelly Reichardt joint. And for people who've been listening to the podcast for a long time, you know that Kelly Reichardt is one of my favorite directors. We did a whole series on her. We did every single one of her movies.
Ooh,
at the time when that podcast series came out, which was before First Cow, and was before this movie, obviously. So, it's been fun to kind of check in with the Cinematary folks on like how we're feeling about the career trajectory of Kelly Reichardt. This movie feels to me like maybe the smallest movie that she's made since, something like, what was her first movie? River of Grass. She has this interesting career where like her first movie is kind of like almost a false start to the kind of movies that she wants to make. She takes a really long break. She gets it really into a Pitchapong We're Seth Cool. And then she just starts making like these really slow, meditative, like Americana movies set in her home state of Oregon. And Showing Up is like another iteration on that. One element of this like formula that she keeps working with is that it often involves Michelle Williams. So Michelle Williams is the star of Showing Up. She's playing a somewhat successful ceramics artist. She makes these figurines that I don't know if that's the right word for it.
I don't know if I would. She's known, but like I described it last time, like she's known because it seems like her mom and dad both like have a history in the art world. So I don't know if she's. I think like the show she's working towards at the end of the movie is kind of to get her out there. It seems.
So this is what I mean by somewhat successful. Like she works a job in a prestigious like art university out in Oregon, but she only works it because her mom also works there and her dad was an artist, right? So she's in a kind of a comfy spot, and she has a lot of institutional support that like allows her to put on this big show that she's hoping is going to kickstart her career. But she only really has it because of like the place she's in her family. And that's not to say that her art isn't good. That is to say that, you know, the art world is a world of money and a world of like influence and power, and like who has money and influence and power kind of gets seen by more people, right? So there's an interesting depiction of that in Showing Up, where it's almost like a Parasite thing of like who's upstairs, who's downstairs. Michelle Williams lives in this duplex apartment below Hong Chow, who playing a character named Joe. And Hong Chow's character is a more successful artist than Michelle Williams. It seems like they used to be friends, but maybe Hong Chow's career started blowing up and Michelle Williams did not. And so Hong Chow is like doing much better, but she like kind of wants to help her friend out. And so Hong Chow is like technically her landlord.
She is her landlord.
She is her landlord, but like she is, we don't get a whole lot of details about it, but based on what Hong Chow says in the movie, like she is charging Michelle Williams almost nothing to like just stay there because she's a friend, right? So like so much of the movie emotionally, narratively, is kind of about the push and pull, the back and forth between Michelle Williams' character and Hong Chow's character. Hong Chow's character is successful. She's her art shows are doing really good. There's a lot of attention on her, and she's like really happy and thriving, and like fucks Andre 3000 at one point in the movie. Like she's living her best life, right? Michelle Williams is miserable. Like Michelle Williams as an actress is so good at playing miserable people and has played so many miserable people for Kelly Reichardt. This is maybe, I don't know if I want to say more miserable than her and Wendy and Lucy, but definitely like more miserable, like in terms of the ratio to like how bad her life is to how miserable she is.
Definitely,
right?
you feel a little bit more empathy for her with Wendy and Lucy just because of her situation. She's very difficult to empathize with in this movie.
This movie has such an interesting relationship with its main character. Like it is in some ways inviting the audience to criticize her, and a lot of her like overly frustrated or overly disaffected responses to things are like laugh beats. But you also are meant to like deeply empathize with her as well. And a lot of the movie, one of the main through lines is her taking care of a crow. No, is it a crow or a pigeon? It's a pigeon. She's taking care of a pigeon that has been attacked by her cat. And she lies to Hong Chow and says it wasn't attacked by her cat. But she's taking care of it kind of as a favor to Hong Chow. And like over the course of the movie, she sort of like develops this bond with this pigeon, but the pigeon is like so in the margins of the movie. This is not First Cow. It's not Wendy and Lucy. It's not like a movie directly about this like, you know, sweet bond between human and animal. It is like kind of about a woman who like refuses to form a bond with anybody because she's so like cut off from the rest of the world. And like it's I don't even have that much to say about it. like cinematically or technically, I feel like I've just mostly been summarizing the plot of this movie, because I was not necessarily wowed by it on that level. It feels just kind of like a Kelly Reichardt film. It feels very relaxed. It feels like she's just kind of doing what she's comfortable doing.
It's like very
yeah, it's a nice little massage. I really like just the way, I think I mentioned this maybe like the very first time I saw a Kelly Reichardt movie and talked about it on the podcast, really just bring my heart rate down a little bit. You know, I just like settling into them.
Yes, yeah, I needed that.
And this was so mundane.
It's a very like lived in movie. Well, let me get your thoughts on. So one of the things I was thinking about after seeing this was it like gets into it's like it's pretty critical of like the art world in terms of like, so artists, you know, you kind of view as like these, they're kind of outcast, you know, like they're not what you would just like see as like kind of mainstream people. They're the outcasts. They're doing weird stuff. They're out on like, they're, you know, out in the woods doing all these like the dance classes and all the, you know, like they're kind of outsiders. But then like what's fascinating about this movie is like they're outsiders, but like the Hong Chow character, the Andre 3000, all those characters like have this community and like come together as outsiders. And what's so weird about, or what's so interesting about Michelle Williams' character is she's like an outsider of the outsiders. So
absolutely. Yeah.
And so like, and it's just like, it's almost like Kelly Reichardt kind of looking at it going like, yeah, they can be these like very open-minded, progressive, like well-meaning artist outsiders who are like going, oh yeah, everybody can be a part of things. But at the same time, it's still like a little bit exclusionary, you know?
Well, they only get to be the cool outsiders because they're also insiders in some way. And I think that Kelly Reichardt is interesting to think about in those terms. Like, I wonder how much of this is meant to be kind of meta exploration of like her relationship to her own career. Because she's always been kind of an outsider in American cinema. Like, she's not really part of any like big wave of directors all like doing the same style, though, you know, slow cinema has definitely been a thing throughout the course of her career. It's kind of been disparate. It's like little pockets of slow cinema directors from all around the world. She's never really had a big financial success. The best that she the most like money she's gotten in return for a movie would probably be First Cow, right? Maybe Meek's Cut Off. I would have to go look up numbers, but you know, she's this incredibly dedicated artist who has like honed her craft down to a science almost. And like she, because of the way that the cinema industry is right now, like as we've been talking about with Nike or Air, sorry, artists like her just don't really get seen by the general public. She's
more of an anomaly.
Right. She has a career kind of because there is kind of a marginal community of cinema lovers who seek out challenging, interesting cinema. Have I talked about the?
Go ahead. Not to interrupt you, but like what you kind of, she's very much, you think of like the Hong Chow character in this, and Michelle Williams mentions it briefly that like Hong Chow's father or somebody, like she and her father like bought this apartment block, and so like they own all the apartments in this little thing, and so she's kind of going, like, you know, she gets to focus on her art full time because she's making, you know, that passive income, you know, running these apartments. And it's not like Kelly Reichardt's in any way like just loaded with money. I know she teaches at a college in Oregon. She's done those, you know, she's done some TV and some stuff, you know, just stuff like that to like make money. But it's, you know, in a similar way, it's kind of like she does all this other stuff, and then she, you know, during the summer she breaks to go and, you know, make some Kelly Reichardt movie.
Yeah, man, I'm so jealous of everybody who gets to take Kelly Reichardt's class. What is that like? I want the syllabus. Someone please. I bet there's somebody listening to this podcast who has taken Kelly Reichardt's class because you're a film person listening to a film podcast. Please send me
phone in
the syllabus for Kelly Reichardt's class. I need to know.
You could probably find it online. You can find anything. I've seen people talk about like going to her Rate My Professor.
Oh, really? That's fascinating. I would love to look at Kelly Reichardt's Rate My Professor.
But sorry, you're making a point. I interrupted.
Oh, I feel like I've maybe already said this on the podcast before. I just finished reading like a month ago Nick Pickerington's book about Goodbye Dragon Inn by the Simon Lang movie. And one of the arguments that he's making in the book, and is also an argument he's borrowing from another book, I forget the name of that one, is that like, there's been a lot of talk about the death of cinema. Is cinema dying? Like if every movie in the multiplex is like some brand deal bullshit, does that mean cinema's dead? And the argument he makes in the book is that cinema is not dead or dying. It's becoming marginalized. Like it is kind of going to have like the kind of cinema that we think of as like really good, like challenging art, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That is going to be sought out and appreciated by a small number of like dedicated like aficionados, basically, like the same way that people are into like classical music or opera or poetry or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. It's not topping the charts, but that's kind of the audience it's made for.
Yeah. But while everybody else is seeing Super Mario 6.
Right. I mean, these two different audiences are just kind of being conditioned to want totally different things from the movies.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're kind of wandered far afield from showing up, but it's a good movie. It is good. I do recommend you should go see this movie.
It's I talked about it last time. It's A24 distributed it, so it should pop up on like I forgot which streaming service they're like partnered with now, but they seem to have them on like I usually see like on Amazon or Netflix A24 movies. So,
and man, there's been so much discourse about A24 within like online film culture for the past several years, but I am so fucking grateful to them. Like they are the only company, like them and Neon are really the only companies that are consistently putting out new interesting films from filmmakers with styles.
No, yeah, don't get snarky about it.
Yeah,
like it's so easy to do that. But it's not a time to do that, especially given the conversation we just had. Yeah, absolutely. It's like not a time to be picky, at all.
I am gonna get snarky about like the A24 sweatshirts, though. Can I get snarky?
Their merch is a little annoying, especially because they overcharge like crazy for it.
We're not in.
It looks like you're dressing a home brewer from Brooklyn. Look at it. Well, yeah, showing up, check it out. I guess we're still going on new releases. Seth, I'm going to send it over to you.
Well, if you're in the middle somewhere, if you don't give a shit about either of these things, like some big old fancy McDonald's or Nike movie or some...
There is a McDonald's movie. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Calendar.
You're right. Yeah.
You're so right.
And maybe you don't care about some slow lady, some lady being slow.
That's not what the movie's
about. Or whatever. Yeah, you just like big loud noises sometimes, but you don't want them to be like totally stupid.
You don't want to be branded big.
I don't know which movie he's talking about right now.
I'm talking about Evil Dead Rise, of course.
Oh, it is branded. It's a legacy remake sequel thing.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely comparable to like Rob Zombie's Halloween remakes, in my opinion. Yeah. In that, like same with the one that preceded this, which was like why wouldn't expect that? By the way. And like it being both of these like I don't know reimaginings are just that. They are like reimaginings, like to the point that like whether it's Rob Zombie's Halloween or the latest Evil Dead, like 1 and 2, they could just totally be just their own movies. They still have the motifs and everything. They have the Michael mask and they have the Necronomicon, but like Michael is a Hulk like tearing through walls in the Halloween movies that Rob Zombie made, and in this one, like there is. I don't know, like it is just brutal. They're like the Evil Deads are so brutal now.
So evil. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So recently watched the 2013 Evil Dead remake. And I can totally see how it is an Evil Dead remake. You know, like you're saying, it's an reimagination, but like the basic bones of the plot are
They're
still
there. Mm-hmm.
Watching the trailer for Evil Dead Rise, that doesn't look even a little bit like Evil Dead 2.
No.
Is that right?
No, it's definitely. I was worried about the trailer. It's more than you think. It's more Evil Dead than you think for sure. But it's definitely a departure, but I think in a good way. In that, like, I mean, it's very easy to be like, this doesn't feel like an Evil Dead. They're in a city all of a sudden or something, and there's not like these essential elements. But then again, like, Army of Darkness happened, like, which is just like totally crumples up everything and sends them into the medieval castles, and it's really awesome.
Yeah.
So here it's not like that they like totally reinvent the wheel there at all necessarily, but there's just enough that it like takes place in an apartment building in an unnamed city, which is cool. It feels like it could be like, you know, it's like kind of comic booky to me. It's like very stylized, and it's like centered around a family, which is always good. It's very about this family unit that is recently going through like a divorce, and the mother is, you know, kind of distraught about it. The kids are they're kind of in their own little zones about it and everything. And the mother's sister arrives, who is just like this cool person who is on the road. She's like a roadie or something. I don't really understand what it is, but she's just a cool person who leads an alt life, you know, who doesn't call her sister back when her sister's having hard times with divorce and stuff. And that's her arc, sort of, which is, you know, whatever. It's like a weak little arc, I guess. But
the first Evil Dead remake also has a super weak arc about addiction,
which is just like, it's got to be there, I guess, or something, you know. But I don't know. It's like, on paper, a lot of it could have gone worse than it did, for sure. I mean, like, even down to the way the characters are used, like, they are both like following a horror movie kind of trajectory, which is just like the kids are they kind of seem like Gen Z or late millennial stereotypes. Like, there's like the non-binary sister who is like going to the protest tomorrow, and then there's like the kind of femme boy who's,
I love that these
like a
new
SoundCloud
of people, honestly.
Really?
What's that?
I love that these are new stereotypes that exist in movies.
Yeah, I'm just laughing because, like, what a great like new stereotype to have.
No, but it's real, yeah. And like, it's like weird for us, and we might not, they like barely register unless you think about them. Like, but like in 10 years, it's going to be like, oh man, that's like it's like watching the Friday the 13th, where it's like, oh, there's the Sporto, and there's the, you know, all makes sense.
Some of the violence in the 2013 Evil Dead felt like a little much for me to take. I'm worried that this is way more.
It's just on par, you know.
Yeah.
It's just brutal. It is just really brutal and mean, and no one's safe, which is like almost getting to be like a little cliche these days or something like that, but it really is true. And it's jarring because, again, like it's playing at this level of like 1 second it is kind of funny, and it is like in a fantasy Evil Dead world where they have like a magical record that if they play it tells the, you know, that's like all these horrible voices from the damned, you know, or something. But then like there is like shit that goes down. Like the mom becomes she becomes the zombie, and that's where like the main problem comes, where like mom is trying to kill us in our apartment basically. And she's like trying to manipulate the little girl into like letting her in when they've locked her out and stuff like that, and all this stuff, which is, you know, always good, like going for the jugular kind of stuff. But yeah, it's like always playing this like sort of realism versus over the top fantasy or something. And like there is still humor in it for sure, which is essential to Evil Dead, but it is like the blackest, darkest, like it is like a little kid gets his face kicked in, and then a guy gets his like gets like clawed in the face and his eyeball pops out and like somebody chokes on it, you know.
There was
like,
too much eyeball stuff in Evil Dead 2013.
There's eyeball stuff in here. I just spoiled it for you. I don't know. And it also has like this feeling of, I don't know how they did all the special effects, but it has this still feeling like they are paying some sort of homage, but not in like a heavy-handed way to like Sam Raimi. Like the big climactic monster at the end kind of feels that way, and that like you don't get a good look at it or something, which goes a long way for me and is like goes back to like low budget filmmaking, like not showing the shark and things like that, which make it work, I think. But yeah, it was hardcore. It was just like really hardcore, and it was really fun to watch. I didn't know I was there. Like we just went to the movie. We were gonna see it. I didn't know it was opening night, and it was just like us and like all these teenagers. It was packed. I can't remember last time I was in a packed theater, but it was packed, and it was like kids, and they were like yelling and like, which is like the best way to see a horror movie. Is just like,
for sure.
Like, obviously, I don't want it at an art movie, but like. Man, it's just like everybody yelling like "Don't go in there, bitch!" You know, and stuff like that. It's so cool, and they're like kids are all like taking pictures with their phones or something. It's nuts.
Horror movies are an interactive thing.
Yes,
you know, filmmaker in the audience.
Yeah.
Evil Dead Rise. I think it's still lingering in some theaters, but I assume will be streaming pretty soon also.
But how about that? I talked about a new movie. I never
look at you,
man.
All right.
I thought for sure you were going to talk about some memory hold thing from the early 1990s. I saw you watch Warriors of Virtue.
Yes, I did. I brought that to Monday night movie night. Kangaroo Power Ranger movie that just didn't take off. It was a riff on an idea that 4 physicians came up with, and then their director friend made it, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fun facts.
You got what you came here for, people.
Yeah, but more important than any of that, Pete and Pete. I'm watching The Adventures of Pete and Pete right now. That's the most important thing you can be watching. I can't. Pete and Pete. Have you? Yeah, like it was a Nickelodeon show, live action Nickelodeon show that was around for 2 seasons, and has like guest spots from like Michael Stipe and Iggy Pop and stuff, and I can't believe what I've been missing all these years. I'm a hard sell on TV too.
Yeah, well.
Same.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna go and, speaking of hard sell, and try to get into Titan A.E. in part 2 after this. Of Cinematary. This part, we're going to be wrapping up our Don Bluth series with 2000's Titan A.E. Directed by Don Bluth and Gary Goldman, from a script by Ben Edlund, John August, and Joss Whedon. The film stars.
I would not have guessed that.
I can.
But I mean, this movie is so like anonymous in every way that like any name you say is going to be like, wow, I can't believe they were involved with this complete nothing of a movie.
Right. The film stars Matt Damon, Bill Pullman, Drew Barrymore, John Leguizamo, and Nathan Lane. Titan A.E. takes
Who is
place.
Nathan Lane?
He's He's Creed. His name is Creed. His name after the band.
Yeah.
I don't remember a character named Creed, I gotta say.
You can't tell, though. It's Nathan Lane. It's tough.
Creed, which was used in the trailer, which got me to see this movie in the theaters when it came out. Because Creed was the second favorite band after Rush when I was in elementary school.
That's a steep drop down in quality.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. We'll have to get to this in a minute.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're gonna. Let's get to the notes, and then we can talk about Creed.
Okay. Is Creed in the notes?
No.
I need to know what band.
I'm just
sprinkling.
Sprinkling Creed.
If you're listening to the podcast, then you'll get to listen to Creed rock out before we get to.
Oh, good.
So Titan A.E. takes place in the distant future after Earth has been obliterated by a mysterious alien race known as the Dredge. It's also that little electric ball thing. That's what they're made of. Kale is a human teenager who had been given a mysterious map by his father, leading him on an unforgettable journey.
A human teenager.
I thought it was quite forgettable, personally.
I just think that's so funny, human teenager.
In development at 20th Century Fox since 1998, Titan A.E. was originally going to be a live-action film. The script had been passed around to various writers such as Ben Edlund, Joss Whedon, and Art Vitello. After $30 million had been spent in the film's early development with no progress, Vitello was sacked. Then chairman of 20th Century Fox, Bill Mechanic, then gave the script to Fox Animation Studios creative heads Don Bluth and Gary Goldman, who were fresh from the success of their recent film Anastasia. Mechanic had no scripts for Fox Animation Studios to work on and was faced with the choice of laying off the animation staff unless they took Titan A.E. Despite their inexperience with the science fiction genre, Bluth and Goldman took the script regardless. Didn't seem like they had a choice. Fox Animation Studios was given a production budget of $75 million in 19 months to make the film. Unlike Bluth and Goldman's previous films, the animation in Titan A.E. is predominantly computer-generated, while the main characters and several backgrounds were traditionally animated. Many of the scenes were enacted by the animation staff using hand-built props before being captured by a computer. During production of Titan A.E., Fox Animation Studios suffered a number of cutbacks, which ultimately led to its closure in 2000. Over 300 animation staff were laid off from the studio in 1999, and as a result, much of the film's animation was outsourced to a number of independent companies.
It shows, man.
Including Blue Sky Studios, which went on to make Ice Age 2 years down the line.
Wow.
Because Fox Animation was basically running on a skeleton crew during post-production, Bluth said at a 2010 Animation Nation special event that much of the film's promotion and distribution was halted. In an interview with Animation World in 2000, Goldman had faith that the change of pace would win people over, saying that his film was, quote, not a mother-friendly movie, although we haven't left the mothers and children out. There is some swearing, some sexual innuendo. It's intense. There's a lot of violence.
Wow.
I don't think anybody under 8 years old should see this film.
I'm a mother hater. That's how I am.
There certainly is no mom in this movie.
No.
We have daddy issues and no mom.
Yeah, no mention of mom.
Yeah.
New York Times in 2000, Titan A.E. tries to pack so much into 90 minutes that the characters don't have enough screen time to engage our emotions. Kale and Akima, in particular, have all the depth of television spin-offs of Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia. This is not to say that Titan A.E. isn't entertaining in its breezy, mild-mannered way, only that its mythology and characters barely resonate. Variety in 2000 said, suggesting a fresh direction for science fiction movie making while adhering to commercially tried and true formulas, Titan A.E. carefully, sometimes too carefully, balances a style keyed to older kids and teens with a notably serious fidelity to classic sci-fi storytelling. Roger Ebert in 2000 said, there is a sense of wonder here. I argue for animation because I believe it provides an additional dimension for film art. It frees filmmakers from the anchor of realism that's built into every live-action film and allows them to visualize their imaginations.
Liked all the butt rock.
Animation need not be limited to family films and cheerful fantasies. The Japanese have known that for years, and Titan A.E. owes as large a debt to Japanese anime as to Star Wars. This may be the instrument by which anime breaks loose at last from its imprisonment in the video stores and in the video stories and find a home on the big screen.
Baby,
yes. It was Titan A.E. that freed anime from its shackles.
Ron Howard narrator voice. It didn't.
It did not.
But it did not. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna start with Seth, who probably was one of 5 people who saw this in theaters.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
How old were you?
I don't know. Elementary school or something. Creed was in the trailer, but not in the movie, which was a big disappointment for me. Higher is playing to a montage of rockets going off and stuff. But it was also they were like my favorite band at the time.
But it's all music that sounds like Creed.
Yeah, it is. And they're all just like weird, like unpopular butt rock of the time, and like all writing songs, like it's all got to have like I'm flying in the air, I'm zooming around,
while you're seeing the character also fly in the air.
Yeah,
it's just all extremely literal.
It is. But it all has that kind of like that was their attempt at like figuring out what the zeitgeist was, which was like like goatee rock or something, buzz ballads, monster drink kind of thing.
Monster did not exist at the time,
but it was brewing. I don't know. It was brewing.
This was the cultural stew in which Monster was brought forth.
Yeah, same with anime. And I don't know. I remember going to see it and being, because we just loved Creed, and and Creed was not even in the movie, and also it was like the first time I had ever seen a movie that made good on the whole thing of like every villain in every TV show you watch is like, I want to destroy the world, but like in the first 2 minutes of this movie, you watch like the USA like in flames and the entire earth in flames and explode, and it was like very disturbing for me. It was like honestly the first time I ever thought of like the earth blowing up like in a real way, and it was like this is serious. This is a fucked up movie. This is like dark shit. As when I was first watching this, I was astounded at how dark it was. What a dark idea.
But then it ignores that for basically the rest of the movie, like because you're not on Earth anymore.
Yeah, but as a
doing like
7-year-old
anime like Gundam shit in space,
I was traumatized as a 7-year-old. It hung over.
I'm not trying to invalidate your trauma. I apologize.
Thank you.
I recognize your pain.
Thank you.
Andrew, what did you make of Titan A.E?
Oh, I loved it. It's the best Don Bluth movie.
More like evening Bluth, you know. You get that?
Yeah, I was honestly not sure what to expect because Don Bluth's last movie, right?
Yeah.
That could be his like final grand masterpiece that no one understood at the time. Or it could be like the dying fart of a dying career, right?
And boy, it really is.
And it unfortunately is just that. Like
I really wanted it to be cool. Would have been
a lot cooler if it was cool.
Like right now, I'm like looking at like the poster of Secret of Nim, which is just such a fucking great movie. Awesome, just an awesome ass movie. And then you just think of just any scene in Titan A.E. and you're just like, damn.
I can't think of any scene in Titan A.E. Well, I can. I have notes actually, but it's like it's really sad to see the end of his career, and it's also like weirdly historic. Like this movie, I think is more interesting to think about in historical context than it is to actually talk about the movie
or watch
the movie for sure. Like, so this comes out in 2000, right? That is like such an important year for this
Y2K.
transition between, that was the year the apocalypse happened. That was Titan A.E. People were worried about that. People were worried about the earth blowing up when the year 2000 came along. But anyways, this is like the year that Dinosaur came out. It was the year that Chicken Run came out. Like these are two movies that Chicken Run is only similar to this in that it's like a computer generated thing, right? It's clay, right? Or do they use
clay, right?
CGI?
No, it's clay. But I mean, there probably was a little bit. But I mean, this is.
They're probably
you have Dinosaur. Disney's like doing Dinosaur and Atlantis and Treasure Planet.
Yeah,
and
Atlantis and Treasure Planet come in the next 2 years. And so like there's two things happening at once, right? There's this transition from 2D animation to 3D animation, which like we see because like apparently the production company here made Ice Age, and that was one of those first big hits.
You got Ice
CG.
Age. You got Shrek coming the next year in 2001.
Absolutely. So like once that happens, like once we're post Shrek, even like Disney tries to hold on to the like hand-drawn animation thing for a little while, but eventually they just kind of give up and stop doing it. and every animation is 3D animation, period. Right. So like we are not only looking at historically the end of Don Bluth's career, but kind of the end of 2D animation in America generally, right?
That's it.
And it's also a moment when Disney is trying to pivot there because the Disney Renaissance is kind of over. It's kind of done. So they're trying to appeal to young boys now. That's why we get like Emperor's New Groove is the same year. Atlantis is the next year. Treasure Planet's year after that. And like other studios are also appealing to young boys, like Shrek, for example. And so like it's just interesting, like how like obviously pandery that is in this movie. Like this feels like it is just what do boys like? They like space. They like explosions. They like looking at girls but not actually talking to them.
Orcs and swamps.
They like orcs and swamps or ogres and swamps. And yeah, the whole movie just feels like this kind of empty shell of insert product here, you know. This is gonna save the company.
It's a bummer.
Well, this is such a weird, like, because they wanted it. They like it's like the first of like, we want this to like spawn like not only like sequels and prequels like type things, but also like video games and like books. Like they had like 3 like prequel novels that came out of this, like one about Kale, one about Akima,
really?
and one about Kale's dad and like how he like created the Titan thing.
Next podcast.
It's just like, like this was one of those where it like got a little ahead of itself in terms of like it wanted to be like this, almost like this cinematic universe before that became like a term.
Yeah. Well, Star Wars at the time, this is right around when the prequels came out. Wasn't Phantom Menace 1999?
Yeah.
Is that right? So like I remember being really into the Phantom Menace as a kid, even though that movie is not very good. But like young boys were like having space, like poppy space stuff marketed to them like constantly at this time. And like this movie, even the climax like feels like it is directly quoting both of the Vader like climaxes in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Like it's a weird mashup of them. Jesse actually, when I was watching this movie, walked by and asked me if I was watching a Star Wars. She thought that I was watching one of like the Clone Wars series or something, which my understanding is a million times better than this.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like Phantom Menace coming out around the same time, and like you had already seen this done so much better, like all of this, like, and now especially looking back on this, it's like it's kind of unwatchable in that way. That it's just like it feels like you've just seen this so many times by 2023, like in so many better ways and different ways, and like if anything, you're just bored of seeing this. Like,
I was so bored. I could not keep my eyes on the screen. Half of this movie I spent on Wikipedia looking at the like historical timeline of when all these fucking movies came out.
It's funny that like it's I guess it's funny reading the reviews, like the contemporary reviews of it, who are kind of just like, oh, like this is, again, point, like the Phantom Menace had just come out, like they clearly weren't, where we are here in 2023, which we've like, hit the saturation point and gone further when it comes to like Star Wars content, or just even Star Wars type content. And so like like watching it now, it's just tiresome. But even I feel like then, like it's a movie. It's weird that like Ebert's like there's like a sense of wonder here. I'm like, not really.
No, like, there's no wonder. There's like, I know exactly what is about to happen. I kept hoping that something I didn't expect would happen, and it never did. No. Except for I guess there's sort of the double crossing thing that happens at the climax.
Well, yeah, but then
that's so.
But then they like they keep double crossing. And you're just like, stop it.
And then he does the boring thing where
it's
he
like a
gets
Family Guy bit or something.
Redeem himself at the end by like, oh, just go, it's better this way. Like, everything is just like a little help here. Didn't we leave this party? It's all that. Like I can't believe it.
It feels like a movie developed by an AI before AI has like started to take over now.
It does feel pretty uncanny. Yeah. I mean, it is, and it is really disappointing in that it is the end of the road in so many ways, which I feel like when we were talking about Rats of Nim or like
even American Tail or
American Tail, like there was this whole wave like with Ralph Bakshi and a lot of these animations, and like where it's like this idea that's like, can we make like a possibly adult content with animation? Like, is it possible to find like an even harder place, which is this middle ground, which I think Titan A.E is kind of going for that, where it's
trying to be a 4-quadrant movie,
right? Like teenagers to like
their dads.
Like their dads would also have a good time at Titan A.E, like with animation. And it's just like, this is the end. It's official. It's not going to happen. We are not in 2023 going to have just like a PG-13 or rated R, like just mainstream animated movie.
Well, another thought that I had about this was that, not only is this the moment when animation is switching from 2D to 3D, but video games are also switching from 2D to 3D at this time. Like
Pokemon cards.
It happened a little earlier in video games because you can get away with like lower polygon count, and it's like gamers are going to accept it because it's just already this abstract non-narrative thing, right?
Yeah.
But let's see. I wrote down some dates here. Like Ocarina of Time came out in 1998. That was the big jump for Zelda, 2D to 3D. Final Fantasy VII was the year before, 1997. And then it wasn't until 2001 that we got something like Halo. And like Halo feels similar to this in a lot of ways, in that it feels like video games kind of won the war for that demographic at this time, right? Like if you're like a young boy who wants to engage with some sort of media that's just like kind of empty, like sci-fi power fantasy stuff, are you gonna go to a movie, or are you gonna play a video game where you can do it yourself? And video games win, right?
Yeah. My most popular review on Letterboxd is about Technolust, saying there's strong PlayStation 2 vibes in this. I kind of need to bring that back for Titan A.E, which is there's strong Xbox 360 vibes in this.
Dude, there are so Xbox 360 vibes.
They look nuts. I really was banking at least on some sort of like, even if it's garish, like something like maybe it does look good, like it does look interesting or something, which
not really.
It does not. It's like like shittier Atlantis. Like it does, like the animated character designs like look like really flat and like kind of hazy, like the way the colors look, and it looks like Atlantis, like shitty Atlantis, and then the backgrounds look absurd a lot of the time, like especially the end, the final sequence where they're like on New Earth and they're on a cliff.
Oh my god!
And it's this
like rainbow,
like CGI rainbow, CGI mountains, and we're like swirling around. And
oh
it's
my
like
god!
Full on like screensaver looking shit.
It's so bad.
Like honestly, I wish there was more of just like that, just like openly like looks insanely bad. Like it would be more fun to watch, you know.
I have one small defense of the 3D in this movie. There's one thing that I thought was neat, and that is that this movie, the conflict of it is between the people of Earth and like these weird cyber aliens.
They look cool.
And the cyber aliens are 3D and the humans are 2D, and the cyber aliens look like some weird low polygon video game shit. But it makes sense that they would, because they're cyber aliens.
They are electricity, and I do like I like the dredge. They are the best part of this movie. I like the idea that they're just like inhabiting bodies, but really they're like electricity incarnate or something, and they look kind of cool. They're like blue and just like,
well, it's like they go whenever
like a Brisk commercial.
Well, yeah, whenever
this movie makes me think about liquids.
Kale and Akima, whenever they get captured, and it's like in the entire like dredge ship, and it's just like, it's a little uncanny there, because you just have these like 2D animated, and just within these like, complete 3D, just concept things. It's just I'm like it's real uncanny valley there for a little while.
For sure.
But I don't know. The thing with these also, and this is just a note because Star Wars is pretty effing boring with it too. Is like make like probably the best example in movies now, or like in these types of movies, is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Just like in terms, because they go to different places, make interesting like locations. Like with Star Wars movies, it's like they got 3 different locations they go to, like Jedi World,
Desert World,
or Cold World, or or like Rogue Cantina World, and you're just like, it's boring. Like,
or
a
forest.
Like if you're gonna be if you're gonna be like a stupid, like this is why I kind of like that movie that came out a number of years ago, Valerian.
Yeah.
Because it's a stupid movie, but the worlds they go to are really cool and fun, and so
you're
like
the world of something like Alita Battle Angel.
Yeah,
is really fun too.
That's another good one.
Yeah. No, like the chant for a second, you almost think the Gowl planet is cool, but then you realize like it's exactly the same thing as the Gungan underwater city where they all have like those glob like bubbles that they live in. Also love that they're called the Gowl, like almost like at the same point that you would have seen the Great Owl, and they kind of have like they feel like they have that same function in Secret of Nim, like and they're kind of cool for a second, but they're gone like really fast.
I wanna like have the tail end of this just talking more about like Don Bluth,
American,
because it really is like a sad little ending fart for like for a career that like I don't know if he necessarily achieved all he kind of wanted to, but like I think the thing just going through all of his films and watching them, like especially as we've gotten later down the field, I've come to appreciate like American Tail a lot more than when we watched it, especially Nim. Like he's somebody who I don't know if he accomplished exactly what he wanted to do, but like I appreciate like his goal, especially like early on in his career of like kind of trying to go up against Disney and like just create this counter program. And it's just so it's kind of sad, like especially the last 2 episodes it's been sad because Anastasia is literally just a Disney movie, and this one is just like he's just like I got to get out, like it's just kind of like this dying breath, and then it's a bummer that like that's how he ended.
It is so sad, and like he just seemed like an artist who like came into the industry with so much like determination to make art, right? And like pushed back when it was inconvenient for him to do so, insisting that like no, we are making art, and he just kind of runs into problem after problem and doesn't get to make the kind of art that he wants to make. And it makes me really sad thinking about the fact that Don Bluth is still alive and could potentially listen to this podcast. I'm sorry that happened to you, Don Bluth. If you're listening to this podcast, this industry is awful right now, and has been for a long time, right?
Well, it's I guess it's a bummer that he didn't, or I guess he still could, but I think he's like in his 80s. Because honestly, I think he would have been good for like this, for the good and bad, like streaming era, where at least they're, like the Netflixes and places like that will like kind of throw auteur, they would throw auteurs like, here's some money, like make something. And like, cause you've seen it with Cartoon Saloon, you've seen it with like Henry Selick, places, and like, I definitely could see a Netflix or something kind of going like, Don Bluth, make the movie that you want to make, but I feel like that time passed.
He's probably good on it at this point.
Yeah. Well, I feel like in terms of Land Before Time's still literally making movies, so I think he's still making some bank.
That's nuts.
The last one when we were looking at it, I think the last one came out like 2 years ago.
Dude, when some studio makes a CG Land Before Time remake, I'm gonna cry. That's gonna be such a low point.
That'll be like it's official. There's nothing drawn.
I take it back. The last one was 2016.
It's been a while.
But I mean, they had 14 movies and a television series.
Yeah,
so. Don Bluth probably made some money off that.
Yeah, I mean that's and American Tail had a couple sequels, so that's what's also kind of funny about his, he made these movies and then like Land Before Time kind of became a franchise, American Tail a little bit as well, and he's just cruising. It's kind of
Yeah.
like John. It's like John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to wonder, like, if he would have even pushed the envelope, though, because it is this weird scenario where it's the script that is just in limbo that was going to be like a big deal action movie, live action thing, and it somehow just gets passed to him mysteriously.
Yeah.
And I almost wonder if, like, what would he have done if that hadn't have happened? Would he have like shot, like, which is, this is shooting high as much as and it is. I wonder if he would have shot like that, or if it is like a bummer that it was wasted on a script that was already like not that great or
Well,
something. Like,
like
would it have been better if we would have like waited and maybe he would have made something that he actually wrote or like had more of a hand in? I don't know.
yeah, I mean you can kind of see like elements of his previous movies in it. The Kale character is technically like kind of this orphaned outcast character.
Oh yeah.
It kind of becomes like, then it becomes similar to like Secret of Nim and Land Before Time, like a group kind of comes together for this goal. I mean there's
There's
like
stuff that
there's
feels
stuff
like
there.
it's echoing how he kind of plays with like fascism and genocide and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you had any thoughts, Zach, since you have watched all of these movies in the series. Like, do you think that that is explored in any significant way here, or is it just that like in Star Wars there's an empire and that's bad, so in here there's also an empire and that's bad?
um it's a little bit of that. I don't think it's like it never felt like he was like really like trying to reckon with it. You think, especially it's like Secret of Nim. I look at it and like put it next to like something like Watership Down, which is like really on the nose with it. With
Mm-hmm.
that, it definitely failed. It's like not to that level, but um, it's there enough in an interesting way that like I don't necessarily feel like there's a nuance to it, but like I feel like he's able to weave it into the story without it feeling like some sort of like just kind of toss in. Like
Yeah.
there is some like thought around it. Um, that can't be said about Anastasia though. There's not.
Yeah.
He did not structure that well.
Yeah, so Anastasia's kind of sucked. I've never seen that one, which I was
No,
kind of holding out
it
for
just is
that
a
one.
that's another weird politics movie.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
So when we decided to do a Don Bluth series, the movie that I was most excited for was Anastasia because I remember liking it as a kid. But reading about it now, it seems like one of the big issues people take with it is just like it's so historically inaccurate about the way that it talks about the USSR
Right.
that like that seems really strange to me considering how I don't know what Don Bluth seems like he's interested in the rest of his career.
Well, yeah, does it seem like it was a downward slant pretty much? Like that's what it kind of seems like for me as far as like from Nim days to like Land Before Time. It does seem like, and Zach, maybe you know better because you've seen them all, but like it seems like it's downhill from there.
Yeah.
Like I don't know
Um,
if there is like, is there like a peak in the valley really?
I mean, for me,
The Great Valley?
I like Secret of Nim the most for sure. Land Before Time, I think, is really good. It get
I like it too.
the first 20-25 minutes of that movie. Like honestly, if he just kept that thing going and it was like the Rite of Spring sequence from Fantasia, that would have been his
Mm-hmm.
best movie.
Sure.
Yeah, like I said, American Tail in retrospect is so much better than some of these kind of later movies. I have not seen All Dogs Go to Heaven.
I liked it fine. I think it's definitely better than Titan A.E. or Pebble Penguin or any of these other later ones.
Yeah,
Like,
so
I think
but
that's probably like the one of the last good ones. Probably, I would imagine.
to me, it just seems like once you get to Anastasia, like that one. That's why I said I've been like sad about it for two episodes now because even in that one, it just feels like he's kind of like it's like it feels like he's given up to a degree and it's just like here's I can make a Disney movie, so here's a Disney movie for you.
But he's like just he's like lost that gravitas, which I didn't know he had, like, necessarily, like, at the beginning. It is like an interesting trajectory to a career that is just like, it seems like it gets beat out of him, like, by the end.
Yeah, I don't really feel like
he just doesn't give a shit or something by the end.
I don't really believe it's him losing the gravitas. I like to the point we were talking about earlier. I just feel like he just finally hit a point where the industry just wasn't looking for what he provides.
He just can't get there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really what it is. Yeah, I'm sure he could. He would if he could. Yeah.
Because I mean, even you look at it's not like many people were able to survive that. Even Ghibli has staved off for a while, but now they're incorporating a lot of 3D animation into their stuff.
Isn't Miyazaki's new one gonna be 3D, or am I misremembering?
I think so. And so like even they've literally the only one I can kind of think of is something like Cartoon Saloon. I mean they're very niche and
right.
So I mean it's just kind of I think it's just him. I think it's just kind of him hitting like the industry, just kind of finally just going, yeah, that's not what we want, and him not really having. It never seemed like he was able to kind of transition into that, Even if you think about like the early kind of computer animated movies like Toy Story but like these early Pixar movies, like you don't really see a Don Bluth movie like in that category either. Like you don't see that. I think he has a little bit more going on than those provide. So it's just kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it's a really shitty Treasure Planet, which is already not that great.
Oh, I love Treasure Planet. It's so silly.
It's been a while, but I couldn't believe how much it reminded me of Treasure Planet.
Maybe I'm more of a Goo Goo Dolls person than a Creed.
And yet we're still.
That's the better choice.
Yeah.
Probably. I haven't listened to Creed in decades. I don't know.
Any final thoughts on Titan A.E before we wrap up?
Do I have any final thoughts
on Titan A.E?
I thought it was funny how at the end it reveals that the A.E thing in the title is this new system of marking time that's around the birthday of the very special boy at the center of the movie who gets to like repopulate the earth with his hot anime GF. Really silly.
Good
silly stuff.
Good for animated Matt Damon. He found a nice little alt girl he could hang out with.
Yeah.
I will say I just rewatched Good Will Hunting before I watched this movie, so it was kind of a weird feeling. It was weird to watch it.
I had just watched Air before this one, so I went from old Matt Damon to...
He's everywhere.
He's always popping up when you least expect him.
Yeah. Well, that will wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Instagram and Twitter at handle @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we list all the movies that we covered in this episode. Next week, we're going to be celebrating episode 350. Or 450.
450.
Sorry.
Don't undersell our accomplishment.
That's true. 450. 450 episodes. So, check back in a couple weeks, and
Do you want to explain how that's going to work? What 450 is going to be?
Nah, we'll just go into it. It's always a 2-hour crazy fest. So we'll just save that for then.
Crazy fest.
Until then, thank you all for listening. We'll see you next episode.
Oh, bye. The Dredge are coming. They blew up the Earth.